and we'll get through this. And we'll put this here. Okay. Great. So marketing intelligence, if you look at what we will look at or in this chapter, learning objectives, right? So here we're going to define marketing research and identifies ways in which marketing research findings are used. And you're going to see we're going to do something really cool in this chapter. Is you're also going to have an idea of doing a survey and understanding what that is. Please mute your mics. Please mute your mics. Thank you. So, outline the basic stages in research process, describing secondary data sources available to marketing organizations, and also primary, we're going to talk about that. Explain steps and methodologies used for collecting primary data. Exactly. So we're going to look at that. And like I said, you will have an exercise to do in your project that is an actual survey. Describe the role impact of information collection on customer relationship marketing strategies, CRM. And we also look in this chapter the steps and methodologies used for collecting primary data. Describe the role and impact of information collection on CRM strategies, and identify key issues associated with the collection and use of information about consumers. And there's a word for you, right? Consumers versus customers, which we'll talk about that too. So in marketing research, a function that links the consumer, customer, and public to the marketer through information, right? So information used to define what are the opportunities, certain problems, right? Refine the problems and evaluate what the actual actions could be taken in the market, right? I want you to pay attention to in marketing also the terminologies that are used. You'll see that because there's so much competition when it comes to marketing, a lot of the terminology is almost referring or comparing it to war in many aspects, right? You'll see that a lot of words that are used in marketing really go in that direction because it is kind of a war with when it comes to competing against somebody else for a certain product. So you'll see that as we go along. Now, here are two words, consumer versus customer. Anybody tell me the difference between those two? What's a consumer versus what's a customer? Or what's the difference or similarities between?
Customer is the one who's going to purchase the product, and the consumer who's going to use the product.
Okay, so in a household, give me some examples, let's say in a household.
If just take an example of like something vegetables.
Okay.
Not actually vegetables, like if the father is purchasing vegetables for his child, then the child is a consumer and the father is a customer.
Mm-hmm.
Or like a juice bottle or something, clothing stores, clothes, something.
Yeah. So what are you saying is a marketing a marketer or a department? What's more important for a marketing department, a consumer or a customer? What do you think?
Actually, for me, I think the customer.
Why?
Because the customer is the person who's going to decide that what actually they are going to purchase. Consumer is just going to use that. Consumer will look for the same other options as well. If there is, if not this and then other thing, then okay, then he will also consume the other thing as well.
All right. So why don't we take a poll? I'm going to give you a poll right now,
Okay.
and let's take a poll. If I could spell, be a good idea. Okay. Add question, save. Oops. What did I do? Right there.
Vivek?
And it could be anonymous.
Vivek? Jay is not able to listen the lecture.
Who's this?
He's
Jay is not able to, Jay Patel, he is not able to listen to the lecture. Maybe his audio is blocked or something.
he can go back and come in again. No.
You can't
I
see.
can ask him to do that.
Okay.
Let him answer the poll.
So there's your poll. Who is more important to a marketing research company? Let's take a poll. Yeah, so really, it's marketing is really something incredible when it comes to how researching is done and what they're looking for. Of course, there's always the undecided vote or the one that's not sure, and it's always an eye-opening for a researcher to have someone that's undecided and to, excuse the expression, pick their brains to find out, which one they're going to choose and what's more important to them. Yeah, so certainly, right, a customer buys products, consumer uses the products, and of course, we could all be customer and consumer all bunched in together, right? In most cases, we are, right? Customer and consumer. If you were looking at B2B, business to business, right? The way this is evaluated, because of course this is not just one person, and you're talking mostly of businesses or companies or products, certainly there's different levels, right? So in B2B, if you ever have a chance to work in B2B, pretty much when you start off, everyone is a suspect. In other words, everyone could buy your product, pretty much, right? So we get that answer from a lot of students and when we do projects or we ask them, who's your market, right? And I think we talked about that last time. And students will reply, well, I could sell this product to everybody and everybody could buy my product, right? That certainly is not an answer that is valued in marketing research, right? So really what you're looking for is more information and more specifics to get into strategies to find out or to get to certain groups of people. So suspects in B2B is pretty much every single company or close to it. And then you've got prospects. This is where companies or individuals who might or need your product. Certainly this is for you to identify. These are called prospects. And usually a prospect has not bought from you or from a company in the last couple of years. Usually when I was working in sales for a long time, a prospect for us, if they bought from our company in the last 2 years, they were still considered to be a customer. So a prospect usually would take 2 years for them to return to, a customer would take 2 years of not buying from us for them to return to be prospects. This is important if you are working in sales and in marketing, because you need to distinguish what are customers and you need to distinguish what are prospects to identify them for your future of the company, and also how to budget and how to align yourself on who you're going to go see next and all that. So that's really important to really distinguish and determine who is a prospect versus who is a customer. So I just want to share that with you, okay? So the scope of when we talk about marketing research, right, focuses on 3 areas, right? The analysis, the information about the actual marketplace itself as much as possible, information how people perceive products, which is the product research, and information about the needs and motivations we talked about, how important consumers can be, what motivates them to use this product, and not necessarily to buy it, but to use it. So that's really what important, the scope of it. Analysis, product research, and also consumer analysis is important. A certain process, it starts at problem awareness, exploratory research. Exploratory research is just asking simple questions. This is where you do a lot of surveying here in between exploratory research and in primary research, right? This is where a lot of surveys are done to find out and to get more information about a specific problem, let's say, right? Because it's all about that, right? You want, a need is a problem. A need is to find a resource or awareness of how to fix this problem, so someone or a company could actually produce it and solve this problem. So exactly what do companies do? They just solve problems, right? So it's exactly that. So as much as we're looking at selling products, the main goal in today's research is always to find a solution to a problem. Now, a big difference between this and years ago, before even the word marketing existed, because marketing still is considered to be still a new process. It really is, and it's still changing and evolving almost daily or almost yearly for sure. So there was no such thing as marketing research. So what they did was, how do I get somebody's money? Right? That was always the question. How do I survive? How do I go around survive? How do I survive? If I can't find a job, especially after the depression that we had in this century, where there was no jobs, and exactly like there is now, a lot of jobs are lost because of this pandemic. So now all of a sudden, the problem revolves and reverts to back what it was that we don't really care about what the company or the customer wants anymore. I need to survive. I need to live. I need to have money. I need to, so what do? Right? So I will exploit and I will create problems or look around me if I can find any and try to find a solution. So this is why you saw a lot of people today change their manufacturing process from whatever they were doing, and again that word pivot, into something that somebody would buy. And even if a million people are producing that product, it doesn't matter, right? And they will still produce it. Again, like masks and all PPE products that are really, popular today. So everybody went in that direction, and certainly because that was the easy direction, and they were all in survival mode, right? I think we are in survival mode. We've been in survival mode since March, and so now this is one day you're going to take a university course. Certainly, there's no doubt about that, in marketing, about what we're going through today. For sure, there will be a marketing course on 2020 and how the world has changed again, and how marketing research has changed enormously again. And this is a great lesson. As sad as what we're going through is, it's a great lesson for marketing, and specifically for research in today's world. It's going to be a very not revolting, but it's going to be. I mean, there's information that will come out that will be really something to hear, and it'll be really, again, as bad as time as it is a certain. Marketing researchers are doing this, right? They're just going, wow, what we're living through is unbelievable. If I could just live through this and survive, this research that we're going to do is going to be really something. So it is a special time for that, okay? And recommendations, all the way down recommendations, implementation, certainly this is when production and sales kicks in. So it is a special time. So problem awareness, right? Problem must be precisely refined or defined. Typical research study will address a specific decision that must be made. And we start looking at the exploratory research here, right? So exploratory research, certainly we're looking at secondary data, right? This is data that exists already, right? Secondary data is data compiled and published for purposes unrelated to the actual specific problem under investigation. In other words, it already exists. And marketing research really does not want to rely on secondary data as much as they want to rely on information that they don't know about, right? So yes, we're looking at internal data sources or external data sources of the company itself, right? Secondary data is easy to get, and it's easy to compile, it's easy to research. There are many search engines that you could do to get all this kind of information, right? But what they're really looking for is primary data or primary research, right? Data collected and recorded for the first time to resolve a specific marketing problem. And this is where surveys in today's world, especially for new companies or new entrepreneurs, this is where it's really critical, because they want to know before they even spend a penny if they're going in the right direction. Again, in today's world, it's in what we're going through. Primary data or research is more difficult to do, no doubt about it, and it's more enriching for the company to gather this information in today's world than just secondary data, which is pretty much available, for everyone if you do your research, right? So it is certainly worth a lot. Its weight in gold, if you want to use that term, when it comes to primary research, right? So identify the precise nature of the problem, objectives of the actual study. Any hypothesis is confirmed or refuted by collected data. Here we use a scientific or hypothesis, or this could be related to science, right? And in marketing, in many ways, or research is very scientific, and it has to be very scientific, where you do start from the very beginning and make sure that it is 100% confirmed before you actually put it in process. Very scientific that way, right? So the hypothesis has to be confirmed or refuted. So the hypothesis really is the awareness of the problem, right? The hypothesis is the awareness of the problem, and how do you fix it, right? Is really what that is. Then you got representative sample, which is again marketing or targeting, essential to order to produce valid and reliable data. Again, what that means is that you can go out and get, if you open up a survey and you want to open up a coffee shop, or you want to open up a specific research on a certain product, but if you go out, like I told you before, from B2B, right, and you just have so many suspects out there, and you just ask anybody, what you gathered, the information that you've gathered, will not be a good sample, will not be very valid or reliable for what you want to do. So a little bit like B2B, you want to define who your prospects and who your possible customers can be, and get away from the suspects, right, as much as possible. And this is what we talk about when we come to samples, is we really want to key in a specific sample or a specific target in the market. So define the population, identify the sample, how you will frame it, and determine the type of sample that you want to do, and also the actual size of the sample that you want to do. So it has to be very representative in how you do it. So let's look at these terms and what they mean. So population, right? A group of people having certain age, gender, or again, what we talked about yesterday, which is really important now when you look at in marketing research, is the demographics, right? The characteristics of the demographics is really important. The frame itself, a listing that can be used for reaching a population, right? A certain sampling and how you can get this. In other words, a frame, how you're going to, what exactly you're going to do to get that. The type of sample, either, as it says, a probability sample in which respondents have a known and equal chance of being selected, or again, non-probability in which respondents have an unknown chance of selection. This is what we're talking about when we want to define suspects, prospects, and actual possible clear customers, possible customers for sure. And the size, determining how many respondents are required to produce accurate results. Certainly, the more the better. I would say yes. The more you can expand on your sample size, the more information you're going to gather, right? But in many cases, sometimes you can spin your wheels too much, as we say, and if you get too many samples, you might get lost in the different answers, and you're not going to move forward. So somewhere along the way, you have to determine how many you're going to ask, and stop and focus on that. In other words, as much as you want to, there's always going to be a bit of risk, no matter how many people you ask, when it comes to these type of surveys and questions. Qualitative data, right? Data collected from small samples in a controlled environment. Here again, qualitative, quality, right? Focus implies the discussion on a specific topic, right? Interviews reveal attitudes by consumers. Here again, what that means is that you're really getting into more detail about the actual samples that you have, and more specific. So qualitative data is that. Focus groups certainly now are done all over the place, but no choice to do them online in today's world. But qualitative data is what they're looking for, versus quantitative, which is, a little bit more, just, quantity, large samples, more the better kind of a thing. Sometimes, like I said before, the interpretation of all this, you can get lost in the actual amount of questioning or the amount of samples that you receive, right? And certainly we're looking at answering a lot of questions when we have quantitative data, right? So comparison a bit of the both, right? Qualitative data collecting from small, quantitative larger groups, right? Small sample poses reliability of data, and data are, in the other side though, there could be a little bit more not necessarily errors and mistakes that's calculated as it says there, but yeah, I think it just extends the research a bit too much. And like I told you before at the beginning, marketing is what's going to happen tomorrow. And if you quantitatively research continuously and don't stop researching that way, you're going to get past deadlines. And next thing you know, you're going to have to do this. You're going to have to do the research again, right? So you need to have really qualitative research done at a higher level than I would think you would do quantitative. Survey methodology, right? You have many types of surveys that you can do. A personal interview, one-on-one, you can call, you could mail, and of course the way it's done today overall is online, right? As much as possible. So you get surveys done continuously if you go on all these social media sites, right? So which option to use depends certainly on the nature of the information that you're looking for, right? If you're looking for quantitative, certainly you're going to head towards more, online and mail. If you're looking for more qualitative, for sure, you're going to go a little bit more personal, right? The cost plays a big part, and also in location. Online, well, there really is no location, so you can't, if you want to look for quantitative, well, you can ask pretty much anybody that wants to answer your survey can answer your survey, right? Data transfer and processing. Once data has been collected, editing, data transfer, and tabulation takes place. Right questions are reviewed, and data is transferred. Like in other words, what do they do with this information, right? And then it's tabulated, right? So this is when there's a lot of cross-referencing done, and also to find out a little bit more about how they answered and why. So we are going to do a survey where you're going to have to tabulate, and in the next few classes, I will give you what that's going to look like. Okay. Let's keep going. Data analysis, interpretation, right? And evaluation of each question to record observation, and again, interpretation and assessment of of all the information that you gathered, right? And to take a closer look at what is your objectives and the hypothesis of this study is what you're looking at, right? This is where all of a sudden you have to break it down and figure out if this survey that you have done or the sample that you've chosen is leading you to the right direction in your study. And then, of course, you got the recommendations and implementations, right? The courses of action. What are you going to do? If you have done too much research, you might have missed your deadline, and you might have to go back and research again, possibly. If not, you have to make a decision on what you want to do and report your decisions. And this is exactly what you guys are going to do, right? You're going to have to write a report on a certain product, and we'll get to that right after this. And a little bit more information, managing information on CRM, right? The objective of CRM is to devise efficient marketing strategies that will attract customers. I can tell you when I started, when CRM came to life, because it's still pretty new, and all of a sudden we're getting all this software and sales telling us to fill in these forms and to do research on certain relationships with customers, and to gather information from our prospects and to find out when was the last time we went and see them, what did they say. All this information gathered was really something special, but it really was hard on the salesperson to start this. It's like starting at zero to gather all this information. But if you really wanted to have success in sales, this is where the ones that realize how important to gather this information was, they're the ones that succeeded the most, right? Because they gathered information and they used this information. The ones that were stuck or had so much experience and had a very fixed mindset and did not want to change how they sold, or marketers that did not want to change how they actually did research, well, did not have good, strong success. CRM really is the way to go. So just to finish off, right, managing information, a procedure known as data mining provides a means to uncover information about customers that should produce more effective strategies. The goal is to maximize the value of a customer through additional purchases of a product or through purchases of related products. Again, this all has to do with a lot of, when we talk about the CAC, which is the cost to acquire a customer, comes into play. Lifetime value of a customer. Do they buy the product often? How do they buy the product? How do they pay? How do I gather this information? And how correct is it? So mining, again, the term used there really means that you don't know what you're going to get, right? So in research, if it's not a clear process. So you have data mining, so it really is a little bit more delving into more information about specific customers, right? So CRM model, if you can see this, right, it all starts with a company database and all the way down to questions that you can ask that are very relative, and also customer extension, and when it comes to promotions or unique offers that you can make. So CRM has really evolved, and a lot of companies today are doing just this, right? Like I had mentioned before, there's a company called Salesforce that is extremely powerful and has gathered so much information about customers that a lot of other companies use their services and they can't live without them. That's how strong CRM has become today in companies and the future of companies for sure. And last slide, customer or information collection and consumer privacy, right? It's really important that in the age of course what we live in, retailers can develop individual customer profile and deliver offers of interest to that individual. This is efficient, certainly, but there's so many guidelines here to protect the consumer, which unfortunately in today's world is worth so much that they're sold, right? So the ones that were really renowned to selling information about consumers and not protecting their privacy used to be, probably still is, magazines, right? All types of magazines. They have a huge list of all consumers that buy their product or have subscriptions, and they sell this, right? It's a bit like Facebook too, right? They sell this. Or what just took place here in Quebec, where there's a bank called Banque Desjardins, where 4 or 5 individuals working inside this bank collected all this information about all the actual customers and in the bank, and gathered it, put a nice ribbon on it, gathered it, and sold it. Could you imagine? So all this happened just recently. This is a bank here in Quebec where these individuals, which they haven't been caught yet, they have a good idea who they are, but they sold all the information of every single customer or that was in the bank, this Desjardins Bank, right? And this is so true that right now a lot of that information has come to life, and a lot of people are reporting that their information has been used and some of their accounts have been liquidated. So this is a big issue when it comes to this, is all this information that is gathered is so easily available because of technology that it can become efficient, yes, but can also become unlawful, and you'll have all this information. You might end up losing your identity, basically. So that's a big issue in marketing, only because they want to do a lot of great research, certainly, and they want to get you to buy the product, and sometimes, well, they'll go to further means to gather this information to be more accurate, right? So that's pretty sad state of affairs, right? So that's it for this